The Nightly Business Report.
Good evening. Tonight, Colombo port achieves record growth in transshipment traffic, solidifying its status as a key regional shipping hub. United Petroleum Lanka's exit from Sri Lankan market delayed due to government's failure to fulfill key contractual commitments. Sri Lankan stock market posts modest gains as ASPI and S&P SL20 close higher amid stable investor sentiment. And Wall Street rallies sharply as Trump's positive remarks on China ease trade tensions and boost investor confidence.
From Studio 24C, here's Anuradi Vikramasinghe.
A very good evening and thank you for joining us. The Port of Colombo recorded a strong 16.8% year-on-year surge in container volumes in August of this year, driven primarily by a sharp rise in transshipment activity.
The Port of Colombo reported a strong 16.8% year-on-year increase in container throughout August 2025, handling 741,124 TEUs compared to 634,544 TEUs in August 2024. This growth was mainly driven by a 16.1% surge in transshipment volumes, which reached 592,413 TEUs. As a result, total container volumes for the first 8 months of 2025 rose to 5.43 million TEUs, marking a 5.7% year-on-year increase. Local trade also showed improvement, with import containers up 0.6% and exports rising 5.9% in August. The recently launched Colombo West International Terminal played a key role, contributing over 102,000 TEUs in transshipment. While container volumes grew, total cargo dropped 16.2%, though ship arrivals rose 7.7%, reflecting stronger maritime activity.
Moody's Ratings has completed its latest periodic review of Sri Lanka, reaffirming its CAA1 foreign currency long-term issuer rating. The rating reflects the country's high debt burden, weak debt affordability and ongoing external vulnerabilities, although these risks have eased slightly post-2022 debt restructuring. Sri Lanka's economic recovery remains on track, with GDP growth at 4.8% in the first half of this year, supported by rising tourism, remittances and stronger domestic sentiment. Government revenue grew by 26.5% in the first 7 months of this year, aided by the lifting of vehicle import restrictions and improved tax collection. Fiscal consolidation is expected to continue, with the deficit projected to narrow to 6.0 to 6.5% of GDP in 2025. Moody maintains a stable outlook, citing balanced risks with potential upgrades tied to sustained reforms and broader revenue gains. United Petroleum Lanka has initiated formal dispute proceedings after the Sri Lankan government failed to honour key terms of their agreed exit plan.
United Petroleum Lanka, an Australian-owned fuel retailer, entered the Sri Lankan market in August 2024 with high expectations and government-backed agreements. The company complied with its contractual obligations but faced ongoing challenges due to the government's failure to uphold key terms. These breaches created an unsustainable business environment, forcing United Petroleum Lanka to suspend operations in December 2024 and plan an orderly exit. An exit agreement was reached in April 2025, but the government failed to fulfill a critical commitment despite multiple extensions. As a result, United Petroleum Lanka terminated the exit agreement and initiated formal dispute resolutions proceedings this month. The company expressed disappointment over the challenges faced, emphasizing the need for consistent policies and respect for contracts to attract foreign investment.
The Reserve Bank of India has permitted Indian banks to extend loans in Indian rupees to customers in Sri Lanka, Bhutan and Nepal. Indian bank branches in Sri Lanka can now provide rupee-denominated loans to local banks and individuals. This move is expected to improve credit accessibility for Sri Lankan businesses and reduce exchange rate risks, strengthening trade ties between the two countries. Analysts suggest that Sri Lankan borrowers may benefit from borrowing in Indian rupees compared to US dollars, despite potentially higher interest rates. India, being a major source of imports for Sri Lanka, could see more trade conducted directly in rupees if exporters agree. The measure comes amid Sri Lanka's weak credit rating and currency crisis, which have made foreign borrowing costly. Let's take a short break now. This is the Nightly Business Report. And welcome back to the Nightly Business Report. Sri Lanka's stock market posted modest gains with both the ASPI and S&P SL20 ending higher. Investor sentiment remains steady amid gradual recovery signals and regional market cues. For further insights on this, we have Manusha Kandanarachi from First Capital Holdings.
Thank you, Anuradhi. The Colombo bourse closed in positive territory today, gaining 51 points to end at 22,373. Retail participation increased compared to the previous session, while high net worth activity remained moderate. Despite the overall gain, the number of negative contributors exceeded the positive ones as well. Key positive contributors to the index included Windfalls, Dialog, HNB Bank, People's Leasing and NDB Bank. Turnover recorded 5.7 billion rupees, reflecting an 18% decline from the monthly average of 7 billion rupees as well. The diversified financial sector led sector-wise with a 26% contribution, while utilities and capital goods sectors collectively accounted for 27%. Investor interest in the utilities sector also saw a notable increase. Meanwhile, market capitalization surpassed 8 trillion for the first time, marking a significant milestone. Foreign investors turned into net sellers, posting a net outflow of 59 million rupees as well. Top 3 price gainers of the day were Windfalls, Tess Agro and Associated Motor Finance, whereas the top 3 price losers of the day were SMB Finance Non-Voting, Industrial Asphalts and Pan Asian Power.
Sri Lanka's private sector credit has seen a strong rebound, growing by 20.6% year-on-year in August of this year. This surge reflects rising business confidence and increased borrowing amid lower interest rates and improving economic conditions. For further insights on this, we have Ranjan Ranatunga from First Capital Holdings.
Thank you, Anuradhi. Total credit disbursed by the banks grew by 86.5 billion rupees during August 2025. The growth was driven predominantly by the lending to the private sector, which grew by 20.5% year-over-year to 226.8 billion rupees. The growth in credit disbursed to the private sector was driven mainly by increased vehicle imports and consumer demand, while prevailing low interest regime also contributed to the growth. Meanwhile, increasing demand for credit to the state sector contracted by 140.3 billion rupees during August 2025. Considering the above developments, total credit grew by 5.8% year-over-year and 4.5% year-to-date. Meanwhile, interest rates denominated through the AWPR increased slightly by 9 basis points to 8.19% during previous week. The slight increase in AWPR during the concerned periods was largely driven by the liquidity concern amidst local banks, which is slightly impacted with growing credit demand. Thank you.
Gold prices traded flat in Asian trading today after jumping to a new record high above $4,100 per ounce earlier in the day, as renewed tensions between the US and China spurred a rush into safe haven assets, while silver also rallied to fresh peaks. Spot gold traded 0.1% higher at $415.67 per ounce after hitting a fresh all-time high of $4,190.67 earlier in the session. US gold futures were largely unchanged at $4,130.51 an ounce. Silver prices dropped 1.7% to $49.05 an ounce after hitting a new record high above $53 an ounce. Platinum fell 1.2% to $1,658.45 an ounce. Benchmark copper futures on the London Metal Exchange slipped 2.8% to $10,519.05 a ton, while US copper futures declined 3.4% to $4.96 a pound amid worries around Chinese demand. Oil prices rose slightly in Asian trade today, steadying from recent losses as US and Chinese officials attempted to de-escalate renewed trade tensions between the economic giants. Brent oil futures for December rose 0.4% to $63.55 a barrel, while West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 0.4% to $59.22 a barrel. Oil had tumbled to a near 5-month low late last week after US President Donald Trump announced a 100% trade tariff against China over its rare earth export controls. In addition to the trade jitters, oil markets are also grappling with fears of a looming supply glut and weakening global demand. A ceasefire between Israel and Hamas saw traders price out some risk premium from oil. The Sri Lankan rupee has changed slightly against the US dollar at commercial banks in Sri Lanka today compared to yesterday. The buying rate of the US dollar remains unchanged at 299 rupees and 40 cents, while the selling rate is also unchanged at 304 rupees and 90 cents. With that, let's take a closer look on how the Sri Lankan rupee has performed against other major global currencies. Short break now. This is the Nightly Business Report. Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report. Lanka Aluminium Industries PLC is reshaping Sri Lanka's retail aluminium market by offering credit terms and card payment options to boost accessibility.
Lanka Aluminium Industries PLC is transforming the retail aluminium extrusion market in Sri Lanka by introducing credit terms and credit card payment options at its island-wide retail outlets. This strategic shift targets the growing demand for architectural and hardware sections, particularly among home builders. Customers benefit from free technical support, including wind load calculations, shop drawings, and guidance on cost-effective product choices. The company also connects customers with suitable fabricators to ensure quality installation. Lanka Aluminium aims to build long-term customer relationships and expand aluminium usage in residential sector through these added value services.
Demo, the authorized distributor for Jeep in Sri Lanka, has launched the all-new 2025 Jeep Wrangler and Gladiator, introducing vehicles that blend off-road capability with everyday usability. The launch event, Legends Unleashed 2025, took customers on a 3-day expedition from Colombo to Minneria, immersing them in the Jeep lifestyle. The 2025 Wrangler retains its title as the most capable SUV in its class, offering open-air design and trail-rated performance for adventurers and families alike. The Gladiator enters the pickup market with rugged durability, heavy-duty towing, and the unique distinction of open-air versatility. Both models are supported by Demo's extensive after-sales service, including a 5-year warranty, MOPA certified servicing, and 24/7 roadside assistance island-wide. DFCC Bank has partnered with Prime Group to streamline the home ownership journey by offering exclusive financing for vetted residential projects.
DFCC Bank has entered a strategic partnership with Prime Lands and Prime Lands Residences to simplify the home ownership process in Sri Lankans. The collaboration combines Prime Group's vetted property portfolio with DFCC's flexible financing options, including special interest rates and fast-track loan approvals. Buyers will benefit from simplified documentation, personalized support, and a seamless experience from property selection to final disbursement. The initiative targets first-time buyers, young professionals, and families seeking clarity and convenience in purchasing homes. With rising demand for quality housing, the move also supports long-term economic growth by channeling savings into real estate assets.
Coco, Sri Lanka's leading buy now, pay later platform, has launched Coco Prism, a premium loyalty program aimed at rewarding everyday shoppers with more control and value. The first feature of the program, split in 6, allows customers to divide purchases into 6 equal interest-free payments, making budgeting easier and more responsible. Prism reflects Coco's mission to promote financial empowerment by offering flexible, seamless payment solutions. With over 5,000 merchant partners, Coco is already a key player in Sri Lanka's digital payment space. The launch of Prism further strengthens its role in driving financial inclusion and responsible consumer spending across the country. Bhairaha Farms PLC celebrates 50 years of pioneering leadership in Sri Lanka's poultry industry, marking a journey of innovation, growth, and national impact.
Bhaira Farms PLC marks 50 years as a leader in Sri Lanka's poultry industry, playing a key role in making chicken the country's most affordable protein. Since 1975, the company has grown from a pioneer in chicken processing to a fully integrated poultry producer with operations across 13 locations. Bhaira's contributions include setting up the country's first large-scale broiler breeder farms, introducing the ELISA laboratory and launching a groundbreaking contact-grown scheme in 1985. This model empowered rural farmers, boosted local agriculture and strengthen national poultry supply chains. Despite economic challenges, Bhaira remains committed to affordability, quality and innovation in poultry production.
Going over a short commercial break, global business updates coming on the other side. This is the Nightly Business Report. Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report. Most Asian stocks reversed some early gains to turn sharply lower today, with markets fretting about renewed trade tensions between the US and China, while Japanese shares slumped amid political uncertainty. Japan's Nikkei 225 plunged 3% after returning from a market holiday. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index dropped 0.8%, extending sharp losses. The blue chip Shanghai Shenzhen CSI 300 fell 0.4% and Shanghai Composite ticked lower. South Korea's Kospi fell 0.6% to 3,563.19 points after jumping as much as 1.3% to 3,646.77, its highest level ever. Australian S&P ASX 200 traded flat after Reserve Bank of Australia. Singapore's Straits Times Index ticked 0.3% lower. India's Nifty 50 were largely unchanged. Wall Street's main indexes ended sharply higher, led by gains in Broadcom and other chip makers after President Trump struck a conciliatory tone about renewed US-China trade tensions, easing investor worries.
U.S. stocks ended sharply higher on Monday, with the Dow adding about 1.3%, the S&P 500 climbing more than 1.5%, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq jumping more than 2.2% to notch its biggest one-day gain since May 27th. Following a Friday sell-off, President Donald Trump calmed investors' nerves on Monday by striking a more conciliatory tone regarding trade talks with China. AI-related tech stocks were the biggest winners in Monday's rebound. Broadcom surged almost 10% after partnering with OpenAI to produce the startup's first in-house AI processors. Other AI-related chipmakers also gained, with NVIDIA climbing more than 2.5% and Micron Technology jumping over 6%. And AI cloud firm Oracle jumped more than 5% after at least two brokerages raised their price target on the company's stock. Third-quarter earnings kick off Tuesday, with several big banks reporting. Investors will be looking closely for signs of how Trump's tariffs are impacting Wall Street's largest companies.
Stellantis is pushing back its new strategic plan to mid-2026 as CEO Antonio Filosa navigates U.S. tariffs, EU rules and shifting markets, highlighting the challenges facing the carmaker's new leadership.
Stellantis is set to delay its strategic plan to the second quarter of next year. That's to give CEO Antonio Filosa more time to address major uncertainties in its key markets, which includes rising trade barriers in the US and evolving regulation in the European Union. Filosa warned in July of a $1.73 billion hit from US tariffs in 2025. Last year, over 40% of its vehicles sold in the US were imports largely from Mexico and Canada, on which Washington has since imposed tariffs of 25%. Filosa said last month he did not yet see the US tariff scenario as final. Meanwhile, in Europe, Filosa needs to wait for the outcome of the EU Commission's review of its 2035 zero-emission regulation. That's due at the end of this year. The CEO has pledged new vehicle launches to reconnect with customers as he aimed to get the automaker back on track after a difficult 2024. Stellantis said it expects to make final decisions on these launches, quote, relatively soon. Shares in the automaker, which closed down 7.3% on Friday, rebounded on Monday.
And that wraps up today's nightly business report. We value your opinion as always, so please share your thoughts and feedback with us through email at feedback.ad24english@derana.lk or via WhatsApp at 076-805-7933. We'll see you again tomorrow with the latest updates across the business globe. Vinod Parnasuri will join you next with other Derana Sports Central. And until then, I'm Anuradha Vikramasinghe. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.